Hey, this is JD.
And Eli,
Introducing the GamePitch podcast.
a brand new podcast launching on the Project Nerd Network. JD, you want to tell everyone what we're all about?
Well, for starters, we're about games
Yeah,
and pitches
yeah.
and game pitches.
This all makes sense.
Every Monday, we're going to cover the week's biggest gaming news. We're going to hand out some industry red cards and pitch a brand new game idea.
For our first few weeks, we'll drop new episodes Monday and Thursday to give you a larger sample of the series. I'm Eli.
And I'm JD.
Let's get to the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the GamePitch podcast. My name is JD Osorio, and I'm here with my co-host, Elijah. Eli, you want to say hi?
Well, hello, listeners, and hello to you, J to the D. It is a dream to cast with you.
I feel the exact same way. It is the best.
It's a dreamcast.
All right, well, you ruined it.
I know.
Guys, we have a packed show for you this week. Lots to talk about. Some big news surrounding Stadia that we're going to dive into. The coronavirus continues to cause a lot of ripple effects across the game industry, and we're going to dive into a little more about that, kind of a continuation from last week. And it's my turn to pitch a game.
Which is fantastic, because last week I pitched Hourglass. The week before that, you pitched your dog grooming game. I still think your dog grooming game holds the crown, but let's throw some fastballs at each other, some quick little digestible news pieces. What do we got up first, JD?
Last week, Marvel announced a new open world mobile RPG called Marvel Future Revolution. Reveal trailer. It was really cool because they showed kind of the alternate timeline, the sort of multiverse of all the other, so you had like regular Doctor Strange and then like multiverse Doctor Strange and same for like Captain Marvel and Spider-Man. And so I think
Spider-Punk. Spider-Punk is in there.
Yes. So I think obviously a lot of super, super cool potential there. I'm excited for that one.
I am excited for the next Star Wars project, Maverick. It leaked on the European PSN. Now, in my brain, just because it says Maverick, I want it to be Top Gun. Just give me fighter pilots in space. Like, even give me a segment where like Wookiees are like shaved chest and like playing volleyball like on the beach. I want it all.
I'm all about that, and I think there's some serious sway there because the art that leaked with it had this little squadron of TIE fighters, or I'm sorry, not TIE fighters, X-Wings flying up to a huge Star Destroyer. Maybe we're gonna get that. Your dream may be realized. And speaking of dreams realized, Last of Us TV show with HBO announced on Twitter late last week. It sounds like it's gonna be amazing.
Druckmann's actually a part of it. Neil Druckmann.
Yeah.
Gentleman who actually was a part of the original game, writer, producer, all of that stuff, a big guy over there at Naughty Dog. Good things do come to those who wait. I can't believe that this is a reality. And a lot of people in the games industry might say, hey, we don't need our games adapted as movies or a lot of that. But I think Last of Us is ripe for this further, dive in or an expansion, essentially. It doesn't have to be the exact game story, but
Sure.
Joel and Ellie being there in the way that the Witcher show is different from the Witcher games. I just want to get it to a broader audience, and I'm excited about that.
I am too. And I think one last point before we move on. One of the creators that's attached to this is actually the creator of Chernobyl, one of the lead writers, Craig Mazin. I love Chernobyl, and I will always highly, highly recommend everyone watch it. It's a fantastic miniseries, and so I have huge expectations for the quality of the writing and the story and the world building. I think it's gonna be awesome. Super, super excited about that.
Can we talk just a second about casting? I think that Nikolai Coster-Waldau from Game of Thrones fame, Jaime Lannister plus Beard needs to be Joel. I've seen pictures of it on the internet. Make it happen. I need it.
HBO, redeem the absolute terrible season 8 Game of Thrones. Give him the redemption arc he needs in real life, please.
Now, you put something into the fastballs this week. When I first read it, I was just like, Ball Guy. Great. Yes, let's talk about Ball Guy. If you don't know Ball Guy, he's from Pokemon Sword and Shield. JD, take it away.
Okay, so this week they announced some competitions coming, competitive doubles play for Pokemon Sword and Shield. And if you participate in that, one of the rewards that you get in game is a cosmetic. It's a shirt. On the shirt is what looks to be Ball Guy, but with the colors of a great ball, the blue and the red, right? It implies that there is a great Ball Guy that exists in this Pokemon Sword and Shield Galar universe that we have not seen. Or it's the same Ball Guy, and then it says that maybe he can evolve, and it actually casts a far more terrifying line if you think that Ball Guy, he's your best pal throughout the entire game. At one point, he can evolve, and that's too much power, I think, to put into any one person or Pokemon in that universe. It's terrifying to me.
Ball Guy is a nightmare to me. He is horrifying in the fact that he could get larger, bigger, and more powerful, potentially with a mega evolution into Master Ball guy. I am in full terror.
Can you imagine if they put him as a max raid battle? Like you spawn in, you're like ready to catch some Pokemon with your pals, and it's just this Master Ball guy, Mega Evolute, like just terrifying. It's just Gigamax to Mega Ball guy, Gigamax Mega Ball. Also, by the way, my new band name, Dibs.
I would say, look, we could really dive in on this one, and let's say you're a girl or guy dating Master Ball guy, which is probably part Pokemon, part human, in a way that Mewtwo is, and you're just hanging out with Great Ball guy by the docks,
Oh.
and he evolves into a net ball, or you're hanging
Oh.
out with him, in a tree, he becomes a nest ball. So,
Oh God, the possibilities
are
really are
truly
pretty
endless.
wide open. Or like, God forbid, Beast Ball. I don't want to see where this goes.
Actually, JD, you just made me realize, what if instead of evolving, he's more like a mood ring? So when he's feeling great, he's a great ball guy. When he's feeling okay, he's just ball guy. As his emotions change, like he's the love ball or whatever, you know what I mean? Like if
I mean, yeah, it's absolutely possible, though it doesn't really explain away like Beast Ball. What mood does it take to become Master Ball? I don't know. And I don't know if I want to know the answer.
you know what I want to know the answer about?
Tell
These
me.
Starfield rumors.
Oh,
So
yes.
Starfield, Bethesda Games, this is their take on space and sci-fi, their Mass Effect, essentially, in a way. And if
Sure.
you're not familiar with them, of course, they make Elder Scrolls, which is one of the biggest games in the entire universe, and of course, Fallout.
Fallout. Yep.
And this is their, I would imagine, their take on an Elder Scrolls or a Fallout,
In
but in
space.
space.
Yep.
And right now, the rumors are saying some juicy and good things. This is a next step in RPGs. This is like the evolution of their formula that they had for last generation, and that the length would be between 70 to 120 hours, that the quests are very
Wow.
interesting and they change, and there's almost essentially a good guy, bad guy, Paragon Renegade system,
Oh.
whereas the way that you would interact with the world is changed by some of the decisions you've made along the quest line. So it does look like there's going to be a little bit more interaction. Again, these are all rumors at this point.
Sure.
There are plenty of alien races and there's a lot of reports out there, but I'm just personally excited.
Yeah, I am too. I remember 2 E3s ago, they had that tiny little teaser, and then they were quickly like, yeah, that's all we're showing. And we've almost heard nothing since then. And so I kind of have some hope that they are taking their sweet time. They're trying to find a way to gloss us all over the absolute nightmare that was Fallout 76 and just find a way to win our hearts back. And the way you win my heart back is a massively open space game a la Oblivion. That's it. I'm in. I'm hooked.
That's
So
that's the them buying you a piece of jewelry when they've done wrong
when
to
they've
you.
messed up. Exactly.
Yeah.
They know it. They're apologizing. They know the way to my heart. They just need to get back there. Sometimes we lose our path. I get it. I understand. We'll see what happens with Starfield going forward. Something crazy that just happened this last week. So the super rare Nintendo PlayStation prototype, it's been floating around, going to auction for the last, I feel like it's been like a month or so. It just sold at auction for $360,000
for just a prototype, which seems
Right.
crazy to me. Multiverse aside, if you could peer into that universe where Nintendo and Sony did team up and that PlayStation made the Nintendos, or that there was a Nintendo PlayStation that was ran on discs, I don't know what that world looks like. How different is gaming? Sega's still around then, right?
Yeah, they have to exist in a much more dominating capacity. You'd figure, right? They'd have to. Yeah, I don't know. It's all very fascinating, and it's all a very cool piece of video game history for sure. And I would definitely be curious to know. Obviously, the console prototype is there, which implies that there must have been some very intriguing game prototypes to see what sort of exclusive IPs they were maybe trying to mash up, or what new ones that they were creating together that we may never ever see, or they could already exist right out in the world, and it's Mario and Rabbids world. So sorry about that. That's actually what we got.
No, okay, look. So you're curious about what we could have missed out on. I'm curious about who's giving the wonderful 101's Kickstarter all this money. Because man, dude, $2 million
2 million. I
for
know.
this. I'm bringing the heat on this fastball apparently.
Please do.
Because I am Wonderful 101 is fine. It's not $2 million good. Like, I'm
right?
not trying to rain on anyone's parade. Like what you like, but for me, Banjo Redooey, what could Microsoft get? Would they get 10 million? Because I'd give them to myself.
2 million, it's a lot of money, and obviously it shows. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are really, really, really interested in this. Or is it a meme campaign and they've come ahead with $2 million and they launched it as a joke? I don't know. I really don't know.
It's I'm blown away by it.
Me too. It's kind of crazy.
You know what else you could
Speaking,
be? Yeah,
oh, you beat me to it. You go. Please tell me what.
you could be blown away by a firearm live
Oh,
on your stream.
yeah. So this week, do you remember the name of the Twitch streamer who got banned? Firing a gun live on stream.
He got kicked off his esports team too.
Yeah, rightfully so. It's such a foolish mistake to make on stream. You know, kids are watching. It's against the terms of service. Like, all moral and ethical things aside, like, you signed an agreement to not do this and then you did it. So sorry, you broke the rules, and that's the way it goes.
So let's move away from this guy, and let me just ask you, what do you think I would get banned for streaming?
You were streaming this morning. I was trying to get your attention for at least 15 minutes. And so I think you will get banned for completely ignoring your chat and not engaging with the audience, because we're all just going to mass report you for ignoring us and just make up something that is completely unwarranted. But I'm just going to grief you hard in reports on Mixer for ignoring me in chat.
Makes sense. I can get with it. Something that is revealing itself and is interacting with us finally now is Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh,
I was going to try and say it right the first time. And buddy,
looks amazing.
I have been, yeah, I have been cautiously engaged and excited about this game. But the
Oh,
first
yeah.
story trailer looks beautiful. Looks
Yeah.
like what I want.
It looks
Sucker Punch.
incredible.
Good job,
Yeah.
guys.
They're nailing it. I mean, this game looks gorgeous. Sony continues to have this domination of these incredible or I shouldn't say first party, these incredible exclusives to the Sony ecosystem, right? I mean, what
Mhm.
another huge win it looks like.
No one can compete every time, because it's weird. I game on my Xbox most. It's my preferred system, I guess, maybe just because the controller. But Sony
Sure.
has all the exclusives. My PS4 is in a box right now, but it's coming out very soon. It's coming out very soon, of course, for Last of Us, and then of course for Ghost of Tsushima. They're kind
Yep.
of really close to each other. I don't know if they're going to cannibalize each other sales wise. Maybe Sony's not even worried about that in any sense because it's summer and
Sure.
people will buy both. But I'm very excited about this game.
June 26th. Yep. And I'm with you. I have my PS4 on my desk, and I just feel bad because it's sort of just like this paperweight right now, right? Yeah, it's not to say I don't like the PS4, because I really do. It's a great console. And that's not to say I play Xbox more, because I feel like if I'm playing games lately, it's been either on my PC or my Switch. So
Mhm.
there's no real allegiance there to either. But like, yeah, Sony has all these amazing games, and I still feel like my PlayStation gets the absolute least amount of time for all of the gaming devices in my house. Don't know why.
And
No
it
idea.
has for me for years.
Same. Yeah, 100%.
But I
I don't know.
always buy the games. I always bust it out when Detroit comes out, when God of War
Oh,
comes out.
absolutely. Yeah. No, and it's and maybe that's probably why Sony isn't as worried, because it's like, we know you'll be back. Like, we know you're still on the hook, right? We
Yeah.
got you dangling here. You'll be back.
Last of Us is coming. Yeah, so just like the attachment rate is strong. Yeah, like yeah, it's just cackling.
Oh man. Well, I think that about does it for all of our little fastballs for news that we have this week. So now we're gonna move into the scouting report and talk a little bit more about some of the big news from this week that we kind of want to dissect a bit. And so I think the first is sort of a continuation from last week. We talked a bit about the coronavirus, and it's kind of whipping its way through not only the world but now the United States specifically this week. We saw lots of conferences in the last week or two get canceled, and especially last week now there's even more things that have started to get canceled. South by Southwest was postponed by the city of Austin, so not even the organizers, but the mayor put out a state of emergency, and in that state of emergency specifically called South by Southwest out and said, hey, this effectively is going to cancel South by Southwest, which is crazy. And then on the other half of the coin, you have the ESA, the organizers of E3, who continue to say we're monitoring the situation carefully and E3 is still on track. So, Eli, how do you feel about that?
I feel bad about it. So the
Yeah,
yeah, and I'm just gonna liken this real quick to even there are even NBA games in San Francisco. The city declared that you can't have any large public gatherings any longer, at least for this next week. So there's
sure.
going to be NBA games that are played with no one in the stands. They still have to play the
Wow.
game. They're still going to televise it, but it's going to be a no fan game, and the
Yeah,
only people that are going to be in the building are essential personnel. So that means concession stands closed. These are
right.
like the guys who sweep the floors for the sweat. This is only essential personnel that's going to be at these
Sure.
games. And you've got to think that if they're closing just a basketball game that's way less people than a conference like an E3, and it's
Right.
only happening for 3 hours on one evening,
Right.
what is the ESA doing, and how could they not postpone E3 or consider canceling it? And it's this wave where they've had so many people pull out of E3. Sony, EA does their thing like across the street for their EA Play weekend,
Right.
and they've had so many major people pull out that they've transitioned, and we've talked about this, from a really insider show to more of a consumer show, and they're trying to
Right.
find ways to monetize their product there. But I feel if the ESA and if E3 had to cancel this year and they lost out on a year of revenue, they'd be done. And I think that this is a move out of fear, right?
Oh, yeah, I agree. I think, we talked about this, I think, on like our very first pod, how you and I, we're big E3 fans and we can be big E3 fans and never go to the show because so much of E3 now is live streamed like all day. There's so many channels dedicated through Twitch and Mixer to getting that content, where I've never gone to E3 and I don't feel like I've ever missed anything having not gone to E3, right?
Yeah.
And I think like you look at all these different ways to consume the content that's coming out, and sure, like I'd love to go. I think it'd be amazing, but it begs the question of if it even is necessary anymore. Because you look at, like you said, EA does their own thing. Nintendo for several years now has done Treehouse, right? Where they're posting stuff on Twitter all day. They are doing their own live streams on YouTube. And I don't feel like they've ever lacked any success in doing it that way. And so it starts to make you think like, this might be the future of a way to announce stuff like this. And then those companies get a much tighter version of control. They don't necessarily need to fit the schedule. The cost of such a conference maybe isn't as warranted.
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, I think the ESA is scared, right? Because if you thought, if you look at the history of it, a year or so ago, last E3, they accidentally doxed like hundreds of people, journalists with like their home address, like terrible,
Yep.
right? And so cool, like what a terrible strike against them that they absolutely like did not properly address. They kind of just were like, yeah, we're trying to fix things on our end, like everything's going to be great, right? And then you fast forward to this year and they're kind of full steam ahead. They never really addressed it, and so you still have a lot of journalists on like Twitter and other social media kind of like ripping into them a bit. Well deserved in my opinion. And then you have something like this where coronavirus is shutting cities down, right? Like in Italy, announced like 2 days ago, the Venice and Milan are on shutdown. Like they're complete lockdown. You can't enter or leave the city right now.
Hmm.
And so you have literal cities that are locked down, and for them to be like, oh, yep, like full steam ahead, like see you guys in June, it just feels really reckless. And it's especially reckless when you look at the examples being set by a lot of other companies, right? So,
Yeah, the large
um,
companies in the world are
yeah.
really
So
are really taking precaution.
to name a couple, Microsoft, right? Their campus is in Redmond, Washington, which is right near Seattle, which has gotten hit with a lot of coronavirus cases. Twitter has a Seattle office. Facebook has a Seattle office. One of my favorite developers of all time, Bungie, is in Bellevue, which is very close to Seattle. And so all of these companies are implementing really, really cool work from home policies. And they mobilized and made this happen in such a short amount of time with the resources that they have, that it's like, how could you not like call on so many other people to be doing this? And I applaud all of those companies for
Hmm.
setting that example. I think it's massive.
not just the on the development side and the large companies on their campuses. There's also a lot of other companies like your EAs, your Riot Games, your companies that you wouldn't necessarily say, oh man, they really have an eye out for the consumers. They're
Sure.
canceling all of their qualifiers. They're canceling their quarterfinals and their semifinals and these events that generate a ton of money for them. And this could have major implications, not to get too political, on the presidential race, with the stock market, with everything. There's a lot that's tied into everything that's going on with the coronavirus, just ravaging every industry across the board, and
Yeah.
canceling or postponing all these live events. It's a unprecedented situation. We've never had the Black Plague while Twitter existed, which is a very interesting thing to have happen. And of course,
Yeah.
there on all the sides there is a little bit of overreaction, a little bit of underreaction in just different areas. Me, I'm hand sanitizing more, but people are clearing out entire Walmarts of all their toilet paper because they think it's the end times, and then reselling it on Facebook Marketplace. So
Oh,
we're
yeah.
we're
Oh,
living in a strange time, just in general.
yeah, I tried to go to Costco to buy toilet paper and like walk by someone who had like two carts just filled with toilet paper. And it just makes me laugh. And then like on the other hand, so I leave Costco and I'm like scrolling through Twitter, and Costco announces that they're going to stop free samples because of
Yeah,
coronavirus, which is
yeah.
actually something I was thinking in my head as I was walking through Costco. Is you have people with 18 things of hand sanitizer in their cart who are reaching for all these free samples that are just sort of sitting in the open air around these hundreds of people's walking by. And it's just like, oh man, like we really, really do live in strange times. And,
So
and oh,
these
go ahead.
times are strange, definitely. I hope the entire world learns from it and we find a way. I mean, just wash your hands. It's crazy that people
Yeah,
are like,
wash
"Oh
your
man,
hands.
I need to wash my hands." It's just like, you should have been.
Why
Who
weren't
raised
you?
you? Who raised you? Like,
You
a lot of
savage.
times people will say like, "Hey, worry about yourself." But no. Just wash your hands, please.
Let's
But
collectively have some worry about each other right now.
as scary or as overblown as any of this can be, I do think that there will be a positive impact from all of it overall, because the event industry, and I'm an event manager myself, and if you're trying to find event jobs right now, I don't think they exist, because no one knows what the next
Right.
8 months to a year looks like for events, if they can even happen or be held. But then also, this could have a really positive impact on working from home, because you started with that, and I think that that is a really interesting, almost Wall-Eization of our world, and how we all
Yeah.
might just be floating around in chairs working from home for hopefully Bungie.
I think historically, right, there has not been a lot of remote opportunity in game development. And I
Mm.
think on a practical level, I get some of that, right? Like the highest level of collaboration is probably when you can poke your head up from across your desk, and someone that you're working with on a project is literally feet away from you, and you can spitball ideas and get right back into it. I get that. I also think, though, that we've seen a pretty big renaissance in remote work outside of the game industry that's, leading to a lot of really, really good product and work being done, right? So there's a company called Zapier, and they make automation tools that the internet uses, and they're 100% remote. They literally don't have an office, right? They only work remotely, and they're crushing it and growing year after year after year, right? And they're just one example of, a company that works in tech that is able to do this. And so I think, like you said, if there is a positive to take from it, we are currently going through the biggest work from home experiment in tech ever, right? And it sucks that it was forced this way, but I think that if there is successes to be pulled from it, it may shape the future in how we can work from home in game development and in distributed teams. And I think that's going to be good overall, right? Because then it's going to open up opportunities for people that are in maybe more underrepresented areas. It's going to open up opportunity for people who maybe don't have the means or the ability to move across the country, right? Like someone,
To live in San Francisco.
yeah, like in these expensive areas, like, and maybe, someone has to live in a certain area because they have to like take care of a parent, right? Maybe
Hmm.
they have family that has to be in that area. And so it's like, oh, this person could be amazing. And now we've limited what, our talent pool is because we had this rule in place. And so this could be a good opportunity for that rule to sort of be pushed around a bit. So that's, yeah, I think, we'll kind of see how it all shakes out. But yeah, everyone, like Eli said, wash your hands, use common sense. Like, just be smart about it. Right? Anything else?
No, I think that really covers it. And
Yeah,
this is probably something we're going to be touching on multiple times throughout
agreed.
the run of the podcast, just because it is the biggest story in games right now.
Yeah.
Something I wanted to talk to you about, and I added this to our scouting report here, is there is rumors of a Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2
Mm.
remaster.
Yeah.
And I just really want to open the floor to you just to ask you really, how soon is too soon to do a remaster or a
Yeah.
remake in general? Like what is there a statute of limitations on that? Or do you just think just
How soon is too soon? I think, there has to be at a certain point you don't necessarily need to put a time frame on it, right? Because I think nostalgia builds at different speeds for different IPs or different projects,
Mhm.
right? Like I think people will still use Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 as a benchmark when they're comparing to modern Call of Duties, right? And
Okay,
so
yeah.
so I think like if you have a game that is constantly sort of being like, yeah, but it's not, Modern Warfare 2. It's not Call of Duty 2, right? Whatever. That in itself is sort of like a benchmark of, okay, like maybe this would have some weight to remake it. Now, that being said, I think it's kind of I don't know. I like the idea of remakes, but I or remasters, if you will. But I kind of like it when it's a really, really old title that we haven't seen in a long time. And I don't know if necessarily we need another Call of Duty out, especially one that we've all played before. And then like we talked about this last week that Activision's already been talking about doing other remasters of old IPs, right? So like give me a Tony Hawk remaster or remake before you give me a Call of Duty, right? Like
Yep, exactly.
there's no like good skate game really out there right now,
Yeah,
and it's sort
exactly.
of ripe for the taking. And so like why wouldn't you put those resources to that where it's like we have a brand new Call of Duty that's out now that people are still playing a ton and like are still all engaged in. And I think if you're riding on nostalgia, you can tap into an entirely other market, like, skate game like Tony Hawk, that isn't currently engaged in a different game that you've already put out, a la current Call of Duty. So yeah, I don't know. That's kind of my thought. What do you think? What are your thoughts on it?
I think it is too soon for me, especially because you could just give the people the thing they want from that Call of Duty, like the maps and the
Yeah,
guns and the play, the
totally.
modes. You could just give that to them in whatever current Call of Duty is the one that's on the market. Uh,
Right.
Me personally, I do actually prefer remakes to remasters. So,
Sure.
remaster just updating the graphics, making it run a little more stable, not
Yeah.
changing what was there. Remakes. So a recent remaster I played, Link's Awakening, great game.
Oh
They
yeah.
didn't change much. They just new art style, more stable, and they changed some of the controls to make things streamlined and more convenient. That's great for a remaster. Remakes,
Agreed.
what's happening with Final Fantasy VII, but I think remakes is the way to go rather than remaster for me. Even though some of my favorite games have been remastered, specifically like the Master Chief Collection is probably the chief example of how good something like that can be when you're remastering. So I'm glad they
Oh,
didn't
totally.
touch too much of it. But when it is an older game, it's really nice to see it entirely remade. So I don't know. I just don't think
Yeah.
FPSs or Call of Duties specifically are the at least this modern of a game. It even has modern in the title, so I don't think you can remaster a game that's already modern. I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me. And other things, something else that didn't sit right with me. It's just the people at Epic, the Fortnite folks. They're so ridiculous, man. Like they're already making all the money on the planet of the Earth. Why do they got to get like into mudslinging fights with reporters?
Okay, so let's dive into that a little bit. There's a company called Superdata. Superdata put out this game industry earnings report. It said that Fortnite basically has their earnings dropping, right? And they've been dropping now. It's their lowest level since like the end of 2017,
Hmm.
November. And so it's like, okay, cool. Like you have this thing. And to your point, right? Like I don't know if Epic would had this not been published. Like there's no way they care, right?
They don't. They're
There's
making all the money.
pools of money, right? Anyway, but this report did come out. Just they came back out and they basically said Super Data does not, and we've never given them access to Epic's Fortnite data. What they've said is not accurate about our performance. Super Data is being quote unquote wildly inaccurate. They just came out. They hit him hard. And just like, okay, and then Super Data turns around and they're like, hey, actually, they're talking to GameIndustry.biz They came back and they said, no, like we have a pretty proven formula. We have a pretty proven method in place to make this, to get this data. And so we're right, basically. uh, so, I mean, it's why does Epic need to get involved in this? Exactly what you said, right? Like they are so rich. They still have this insanely engaging game that
You're
people are still putting tons of time into. And if it did drop a little bit, like who cares?
Yeah, it's like the king of a kingdom just being like walking in the streets, and someone's just like, "You suck," and he's like, "I know you are, but what am I?" Like, you know what I mean? Just like,
Right.
I'm rubber, you're glue. Like, it's just like you're the king. Just
Yeah,
chill.
like it doesn't matter, right?
Have
It's
some chill, man.
it's Emperor's New Groove, right? Where someone threw off Cusco's groove, so he throws him out of the palace, right? Like he's still the emperor, like he's still in charge. Why does it matter? Why does it
Okay,
matter?
it doesn't. But one thing I want to talk to you about is
Yes.
something or someone or a platform that couldn't be further than king status, and that's
Oh,
Stadia.
it is Stadia. You're absolutely right. All right, hit me with it.
So Stadia, on the positive side of things, they do have a new studio that's going to be run by Shannon. How do you say her last name?
Stud still?
Shannon
Yeah.
Studstill. Yep. And there's a lot. Okay, wait. I need to pull it back. Do you care about Stadia first?
I've gotten an opportunity to play with Project xCloud, and I wrote about it before for Project Nerd, which was basically saying that what Stadia has done wrong, Project xCloud got right for me.
Oh
So
man.
I'm not a fan of Stadia yet. I don't think they've proven their model of what they're trying to do. And I certainly don't think it was fair to launch this big paid version of Stadia yet, given what they've put out and like the terrible support they've had so far. So that's my super quick take on it. I'm not a fan yet. Not to say I won't be one day, but I don't care right now.
So me personally, I have a huge warning sign when it comes to Google stuff because they're always just like, "Hey, we have this new initiative. We promise we're going to support it. We're going to keep doing it," and then it just
Exactly.
disappears. So I'm
Exactly.
really I'm in show me status, and of
Yeah.
course, them getting an industry veteran like Shannon that shows commitment. And they have Jade
Yep.
Raymond as well, which is
Yep.
another good step. But I don't know.
So,
I need to see more proof.
So I mean, so the nice thing about Shannon is she is quite the industry veteran, right? She's spent more or less 20 years at Sony Santa Monica. She was basically head in charge of the God of War reboot for PlayStation 4. And that's huge. Like that's amazing. And I think there's obviously a lot of creative potential there. And Google was quick to say like, "Hey, we don't have anything to announce right now," which is fair. They just hired her. I get that. No ill will there. But they quote unquote wanted to create unique interaction models, exclusive games for the platform with new gameplay mechanics. And all of that is very buzzwordy and
Yeah.
very, it could be very empty promise. It's good to grab a headline. It's like what we have talked about before, right? That sort of like headline baiting. Like
Yep.
that's absolutely what that read as to me. It does show me that Google is continue to invest in Stadia right now, right? They wouldn't go and hire, God, I hope they would not go and hire someone like Shannon Studstill, give her a studio, and then they're like, by the way, Stadia, we've got basically 6 months worth of money left and then we're done,
Yeah, no,
right?
well, okay. So Google obviously has to commit to this because games are very lucrative,
Yeah.
and owning IP and having your own stuff that you can eventually source into, series and movies and all of that. It's starting to pay off for Sony right now, and this is something that, of course, Google and Amazon and every one of the major companies should be investing in right now. Now,
Yeah. Agreed.
yeah. So what I was going to say is that like I think I know what they should do, and
Okay.
okay, this is basically essentially a small pitch, but I think what Stadia should do, what Google should do, they should find a bunch of indie developers with really good projects, and they should just say, "Hey, we want to pay you for this to be on Stadia in this capacity." But I think what would be really cool, and let's say that, like this is the plan with all Stadia exclusive games that they develop, as a way to start getting money, is that if you own Stadia and you subscribe to the service, you get that game on Stadia completely free, never
Okay.
charged once in your life. But then they
Okay.
put that game on every other platform: Switch, Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and then they charge money for it. So whatever the game would have gone for, it's a $30 game. Wonderful 101, $40 game. But
Sure.
because it's a Stadia exclusive, it's completely free on the service. You have it in your library from day one and in perpetuity, but then you can buy these games on other platforms. So there is still a way for the studios to make money on the back end, and there is still a reason to come to Stadia because you're like, hey man, I get all these games for free, and they're always going to be free in perpetuity because Stadia owns these. So effectively, their Sony exclusives would be, their exclusives would just be free to anyone with Stadia.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting idea. And it's, I mean, yeah, and that's not to say that because they don't do that now that they couldn't, right? They could
Mhm.
absolutely evolve and do that in some way, shape, or form. And I think it'll be telling to see. So Google promised in 2020 10 timed exclusives throughout the year,
That's
right?
not enough. That's not enough.
It's
It's just
not
not. It's
enough.
just
It's
not.
less than a game a month, right? Like it's not enough games to make the cost of the service worth it for me. And the exclusives, sure, but like a lot of these other games, like I can play on other consoles I already own. And to your point, right, about recruiting like indie developers and trying to get them to do exclusives for you, that's what Apple Arcade is doing extremely well, in my opinion, in
Mhm.
the mobile space, right? Is they're finding developers who have made experiences before and getting them into their revenue model, which you know, to the point of talking about Google spending money, right? Apple can spend just as much, if not more, and they are, right? They are investing in all sorts of games that actually are delivering new, unique interaction models and new gameplay mechanics, right? These nice little buzzwords that Google is saying about Stadia, like we're actually seeing Apple do with Apple Arcade, right? And so it's like, you're right. We're in the show me phase right now, and Google has not showed me nearly enough to make me excited or a potential purchaser of Stadia now or in the immediate future
So
at all.
what I just realized, JD, is actually hey, producer me, who is me, who edits the show.
Yeah.
What I would like you to do is erase all the Stadia conversation because I just realized that every one of our pitches that we're doing could actually be a Google Stadia pitch. So we should be trying to get hired by Shannon and Jade. Whoops. I'm so sorry, Jade and Shannon. You're amazing. Oh yeah, Stadia. Yeah, I'm a big fan of stadiums in general and being in a certain state of bliss. So yes, let's make games for Google.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the cut marker 3, 2. And like I was saying, Shannon, I know you listen to the show, and we are so excited to get on board with Stadia. And this is a dream come true for us. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for
and
listening.
in fact, in fact, Shannon, just to show you what we're made of, JD has a pitch for you right now.
You know, you listen to the Game Pitch podcast, and Game Pitch is in the name, and I know that's why you tuned in. We're trying to help you build that Stadia library, and so my idea this week, and so actually, I was talking to Elijah before we started recording. I kind of went into this not necessarily having a super concrete idea. This is not I don't want to say it's not fun, but it is something that's interesting to me, right? So it's tax time and
Mm,
it's a not super fun time. And so kind of what I was thinking is my pitch this week is sort of a la Papers, Please, right? If you've ever played that, it's, very interesting. You basically are a checkpoint person for immigration into your country, and it's sort of a puzzler when people are coming through. And so my idea this week is kind of along that same vein where you are an IRS auditor and
yes.
and you are auditing these really high profile instances of what you think might be like tax fraud or everything checks out okay, or you have like uh just different like scenarios that you're in charge of. And the part where it sort of deviates is like in Papers, Please, if you get stuff wrong, like it directly impacts your salary, right? And then that salary is like if you can't buy food or you can't buy medicine for your sick kid,
Oh,
right? Like
wow. So this
so
is getting
in
real.
oh yeah, in my version, right? Like let's say you audit somebody who like didn't necessarily like deserve to be audited and you made a mistake, right? Like it impacts them. It doesn't impact you right, as a
Oh
person.
no.
It impacts this family. And so like you audit a family and like they were actually good, but you audit them and you tell them that they owe like another 2 grand, right? And then that family then because they don't have this 2 grand, like something terrible happens, right? And you find out about it. And so then the core mechanic of Papers, Please, which I think would have to translate over here too, is that you're timed, right? So you can
Yeah.
only get through so many. And so it's a game
During
of
tax
accuracy
season.
versus
Yeah.
speed. Exactly.
Yeah, that's solid.
Yeah. So that's
Okay.
that's my pitch this week. It's a little, inspired by Papers, Please. Hopefully not too much, because it flips it on its head where you're not getting impacted, right? The IRS auditor goes home every night and is totally fine, but like what you're doing may impact like all these families that you're supposed to be auditing. So that's what I've got this week.
This game, pretty heavy. I just want to add one little bit of levity to it. So after
Please.
the end of each tax season, essentially there's an Elite Beat Agent style mini game where where you go time out with a group called the Fraud Squad, and you go into these homes of these people and you're seizing their property as they're being evicted and tapping on the items of value to the beat.
Is terrible. Oh, I love it. And if everything goes right, you and the the fraud squad, instead of going into people's homes, you guys are all taking a really nice, enjoyed vacation.
Coming to Google Stadia. December 2020. Perfect.
Shannon, again, I know you're an avid listener of the Game Pitch podcast. Greenlight this project for us. We're happy to get it out as a 2020 timed exclusive. Thank you so much.
We promise we won't dive into your paperwork for the IRS. Oh man, this has been a good one. So let's jump into our red card. If you're not familiar with red card, it's basically something we want all the way out of here, something we're kicking out of our field of gaming, our pitch, if you will. We're going to just red card this and we're going to throw it out. So JD, we talked about.
I'm gonna set you up because I know you want to talk about this a lot, and so let me get a couple words in before I don't get to say anything for the rest of the show. So what we're red carding this week is related to the Uncharted movie, right? So Tom Holland cast as the lead. I love it. And prior to that, Mark Wahlberg was attached to the project and was kind of being kicked around as the lead as Nathan Drake. And then Tom Holland came in and he gets to be young Nathan Drake. And so they wanted to keep Wahlberg. I get it. It's Marky Mark. He's got some star power and some name recognition. And so they've recast Mark Wahlberg as Sully. And so take it away, Elijah.
You know how we started this podcast with dreams coming true with the Last of Us series on HBO? This is that, but equal and opposite in its terribleness and its shittery. My God, Mark Wahlberg as Sully is a crime against cinema. It's just okay. Look, like here's the other thing, because I'm a man who is Latin, and you don't know this probably. Antonio Banderas has also been cast in the movie, and I bet he's going to play a one-note villain that's just going to barely be on screen. But you know what Antonio Banderas would have been good as? Mother effing Sully. I'm so mad, JD. I'm livid. Like he's just gonna be like, hey Nate, how's it going? Look, here's a ruby. Maybe you put it in that socket. By the way, how's your mother? And I'm just gonna be like, get out of here, you Calvin Klein underpants whitey tidy piece of crap. I'm so mad.
Oh, if Mark Wahlberg as Sully at one point asks Tom Holland as Nathan Drake, how's your mother? I actually will give this movie 10 out of 10. Like 100%. They could do no wrong. And he's like, hey Drake, how's your mother? Like I will go see this movie several times in theaters. I mean, it's an easy one. It's a no-brainer.
Okay, look, and I'm going to try to give the other side of the coin here. It might be a no-brainer. You're right. If that happens, that's actually going to be hilarious, and the internet wins, the memes win.
The memes. Anyway, go on.
Sully needs the swagger of a Burt Reynolds. He needs the mustache. He needs the cigar. And I can't see Marky Mark taking a step back, because I just watched him in Spencer Confidential on Netflix this weekend. Sponsor the podcast, Netflix. But honestly, like, he's still in action hero mode, and you can't have a Uncharted game with a bumbling Peter Parker level Tom Holland as a young Nate Drake, not fully confident yet, and a Marky Mark as a Sully who used to have the juice and I'm too old for this kind of thing. Like, I need a different person in that role, someone who's believable as a veteran, because Sully isn't the adventure guy. He's the grease man. He's the
Yeah, yeah,
driver.
right,
He's the guy who's always got your back. He's not someone who can throw a punch in a fight. He's craftier than that. He's smarter. He never wants to come to blows. He wants
right.
to trick you out of your money without you even knowing it was there in the first place. He's Danny Ocean from Ocean's 11. He could you imagine if George Clooney was Sully? How much better would this movie be?
Uh, Now I'm imagining this Ocean's 11 Uncharted mashup that you've painted, and I love it. A grand heist with Nathan Drake in the lead. That sounds incredible. That I like.
Look, I would have even taken Matt Damon as not Sully, but
Okay,
As Nathan
okay.
Drake. Like I would have.
Now you've gone too far.
Okay, my bad. Look, I'm on one. I'm heated. This should have been in the fastballs because I'm fiery. I'm 90 miles per hour right now.
This could have been a pod all on its own, where it's just 45 minutes to an hour of you talking about this with me, just making smart ass quips in the background, like just like, oh yeah, like he's the old guy. He doesn't want to do this, and then there's just me like, I'm getting too old for this stuff.
That being said, I hope the movie's good, but
I do too.
Wahlberg, I don't think it's the right choice.
Well, I mean, we'll see, right? I don't know.
I wish him the best.
I wish him the best too. I want it to succeed because I want these movie and video game sort of crossover to continue and do well. And I think, an example of, I hope this isn't a case of, hey, look, like The Last of Us did it right and Uncharted did it wrong, right? I want it to very much be like, here's two examples of it going right. And in two different mediums. Here's a movie and here's a TV show, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I hope for that sake that it is good, because then it's good for everyone, and then hopefully the Borderlands one is good, and we can continue to see these cool worlds that we as players enjoy spending time playing in, getting to watch them and see these other stories unfold, right? So that's my hope. I'm with you.
No, I agree. And the other good thing is that we've reached the end of another amazing episode of the Game Pitch podcast.
We have, guys. Thank you so much for spending the last hour with us. There's tons of ways you can keep the conversation going on Twitter at GamePitchPod. I'm at J to the D, and Eli is at Mario RPGino. On Instagram, you can find me at J to the D at that guy _ Eli. You can email us at gamepitchpodcast@gmail.com. Eli, what you got?
I just want to say thanks, everybody. You're so good and pretty and wonderful. And this pod was a dream, JD. It truly was.
I'm getting too old for this stuff.